This is FBG Jen.
And FBG Kristen.
And I'm FBG Margot, host and producer. You're listening to the podcast that will help you keep a lid on the junk in the trunk and inspire you to live a happy and confident life.
Each episode, we chat with motivational experts and celebs and share our own candid adventures in being healthy.
If you're looking for a podcast that's equal parts hilarious and enlightening, well then welcome to the Fit Bottomed Girls podcast.
Welcome back to the Fit Bottomed Girls podcast. This is FBG Margot, and on the line today we have FBG Jen.
Hello, hello.
And we have FBG Kristen.
Hi, guys.
Hey, so Jen and we talked to Dr. Bradley Nelson in this interview. And Jen, you got kind of a personal story about what this man is all about, the emotion code and all that stuff. So can you give us a little bit of a background there?
I know. And this stuff, I feel like it's very woo-woo. It doesn't seem woo-woo. It is very woo-woo. So buckle your pants up for this one, guys. The emotion code is basically, it's all about the idea that emotions are energy. And sometimes if we don't fully express them or feel them or in a lot of ways have the tools to cope with them or understand them, they get trapped in different areas of our body. That's what all of his work on is for the emotion code. It's finding those that you may realize you have or may not realize you have from childhood, from yesterday, from any time in your life, even passed on from your family, and then kind of finds this way through kind of like muscle testing to release them. And I got introduced to this entire concept a number of years ago when I was struggling to have my daughter. And literally out of the blue, this guy emailed me. He'd read some of my work on Fit Bottom Mamas about trying to get pregnant, what I was doing. And he was like, you know what? I do this thing called the emotion code. I'm a practitioner. I'm trying to get more experience. I read your story. I would love to just help you. So if I can just do that, and then, maybe you can write about it if you like it or not, whatever. And I was like, sure, I will do whatever. Talking to someone on the phone and releasing trapped emotions sounds a million times better than, having to go to a doctor's office, to be honest. So I was like, okay. So I worked with him for a few different months, and we did it remotely. So he was in like North Carolina or something. This guy's name is Brandon. I don't believe I can't find Brandon Hyde. I can't find his website's down now. So I don't even know where he is or how to thank him. Although I would really like to, because he really helped me. But we would just have these, 30-minute, 45-minute conversations on the phone where he would muscle test me remotely. And I released a bunch of stuff. And it was crazy how right on it would be. And in a very you can kind of share as much information about your past with the practitioner as you want to, or you can just kind of be vague with it. Be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I know where maybe some, fear or shame or jealousy or something happened when I was say 16 or something. You can kind of fine tune it in there, and released it. And then when we were done with our work together, we worked on something a little bit more I think intense that in this interview Dr. Nelson gets into. He just kind of mentions the heart wall, I think, for a minute, but we got into some heart wall stuff. And once I was done with that, he was like, yeah, he's like, I feel like you're going to get pregnant in a couple months. I think this is really going to help you. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So it was really pretty incredible. And then now that my husband and I are trying to get pregnant with number 2, I kind of started to think about the emotion code again. And I was like, oh, and so I got his book, which I think he gives out the book for free in this interview.
Yes.
Which is amazing, which is super cool. But I bought the book, and in the book, it tells you actually how you can release trapped emotions on yourself and with others. And there's this handy little chart and an app that you can get that you use. It's actually really, really easy to do. And now it's something that I do, pretty regularly on myself, a couple times a week, see what's there. And
occasionally with friends.
Because I was like, Kristen's had some injuries. And I was like, hey, I was so excited. I was like, hey, can I motion code your back stuff or your elbow? And she's like, or your jaw? And she's like, well, yeah, you're so excited. Yeah, I'm going to have to.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't say no to whatever you're asking because you sound that excited. If I said no, I would be a horrible person.
So yeah, and I think we only did a couple of trapped emotions. So I think I have to work on you more if we're going to do more. Some results, but it's fun. I find that kind of stuff fun.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, just to give people like a little bit of a, tangible idea of what this is. It's like, it didn't take an enormously long time. We probably worked for 15 minutes, Jen, would you say?
Yeah, I think the most. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it was, it's not like, I mean, I'm sure it can be pretty intense, but it wasn't anything too awful for me. Yeah.
It's fun. So, and I think even if you're kind of like, whoa, this is way too woo-woo, like the whole thing in this interview is, it's just really, really interesting. And since he gives it all out for free, there's no reason not to listen and try it.
Yeah, totally.
Sienna agrees.
Yeah, she does.
Sienna does agree. She has a lot of opinions, which he does say that you can work on your pets. So right now she may just be, Sienna, release that trapped emotion. Do it. Yeah.
But I totally, like when he was talking, like I said, you and I off the air, I was like, is this a little woo-woo? I was like, producing the segment. You're like, yeah, but just listen. And then he does believe that emotions can control your physical being and health, which is, I have this weird twingy back thing. And every once in a while, if I'm under stress, all of a sudden, like I just have this back pain and it just kind of radiates up my back from my tailbone. And it did it again like this morning. And for me, I just talked to the back and I just said, hey, back, I got to get out of this bed. I got to get dressed and I got to teach my class. So I know you're hurting right now, but I need to like move. And it's incredible. Like I can just kind of sometimes talk myself through it. And I did. And, here I am. I'm totally fine. So I don't know. This is a lot of this stuff he's offering here. It's free. What do you have to lose? Just, give it a listen. And, it could probably really change your life. I don't know. I just found him very warm and very approachable.
Yeah. He's not like kooky at all. You know, he's been doing it for a long time, which I think is cool. And there really is, he doesn't also pretend to know everything. So he's like, there's so much basically just about the mind and the body and the connection there that we don't understand, that like things happen, like your back things, you talk to your back and your back feels better. Like that's kind of hard to, prove or quantify, but like you have your experience, what works for you. So I think sometimes it's just, we talk about, on this show, having a lot of kind of like experts on that kind of give you different tools for your toolbox. Like this is just kind of another one of those things that you're like, man, I'm feeling a certain way. I don't want to feel a certain way, or I feel kind of funky or something. Like it's worth a shot to see if, it works. And if it doesn't, no harm, no foul.
There you go. There. So please, if you like the show, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we are in iTunes. We're in all those places. We're on Spotify. You can get us on the TuneIn, on the Alexa app. And just be sure, if you love what you hear and you're an Apple and you want to leave a 5-star review and say some nice things, we will read that on the air, which would be awesome. And if you have any comments or suggestions, just please feel free to reach out to us. It's podcast@fitbottomedgirls.com. That's our email. And ladies, let's just get right into Dr. Bradley Nelson's podcast interview. Hey, did you guys know that being an FBG podcast listener has its perks, like free and discounted fitness classes at thousands of gyms and studios nationwide? Yep, just go to ClassPass.com now and use the code FBGCP for your special offer. That's ClassPass.com, and the code is FBGCP. Dr. Bradley Nelson, the author of the best-selling book, The Emotion Code, is helping people all over the world to improve their lives by ridding themselves of their imbalancing emotional baggage. Users of the Emotion Code technique have found freedom from emotional problems such as depression and anxiety, as well as physical problems including fatigue, pain, and disease. A key element of the Emotion Code is removing emotional baggage that is clustered around the heart, interfering with one's ability to find love and success. Dr. Nelson has coined this cluster of emotions the heart wall, and it has been called the most important discovery in the history of energy medicine. Dr. Nelson is an acclaimed and popular speaker on the international seminar circuit and now travels to many countries around the globe teaching the Emotion Code seminar. He has been a guest on countless radio and television shows and has presented his very timely healing message to millions around the world. He is married, the father of 7 children, and lives with his family in southern Utah. He is here today to talk about the Emotion Code. Welcome to the show, Dr. Nelson.
Well, thank you for having me on.
We're thrilled to have you on. This is FBG Margot, and on the line today we have FBG Jen.
Hey.
And the internet gods are playing with Jen's connection, so hopefully she'll be able to stick with us through this whole interview. Fingers are crossed. And we're going to just
Fingers and toes.
Fingers and toes and eyes. Everything's crossed. So, Dr. Nelson, I'm going to start with your book, The Emotion Code, which was published 11 years ago and is highly praised by your followers. Can you talk about how you came about creating it and why you think it continues to be so popular?
Absolutely. Well, I spent 17 years in a brick and mortar practice as a holistic chiropractic physician. And I was seeing all kinds of people with all kinds of problems of all ages. And I was really hyper-focused and obsessed with figuring out what was really wrong with these people, whether they were suffering from physical problems like infertility or asthma or digestive disorders or physical pain, like migraines or neck pain or back pain or knee pain, or whether they were dealing with something more mental, emotional, like depression, anxiety, phobias, panic attacks, PTSD, eating disorders, self-sabotage. And what I found was that no matter what my patients were complaining about, no matter what they'd been diagnosed with, they all had something in common. And that was they all had what you might call emotional baggage. And we talk about emotional baggage and usually in reference to somebody else, right? Oh, that, she's just got a lot of emotional baggage or he's got a lot of emotional baggage. We don't usually think about ourselves. But the reality of it is we all have emotional baggage. And what I was able to figure out was what our emotional baggage really is. And it comes back to the fact that the human body itself is a very complex energy field. You look at your hand and it looks pretty solid, but if you were to magnify your hand a million times, you'd be looking at a single individual atom. And if you look inside the atom, you see there's really nothing in there but empty space and some little infinitesimally tiny energies that are zipping around at the speed of light, and lots of space in between those atoms. And so really that's what we are ultimately, is we're beings of energy. And so when you're feeling an intense emotion, what you're feeling on a quantum level is a new vibration. Every emotion has its own specific frequency and vibration. So if you're feeling anger, your body's vibrating at a different rate than if you're feeling an emotion of frustration or sadness. They're all different. And if the emotion is powerful enough, what happens is when the event is over, the bully moves away or the funeral is over or the divorce is finalized, whatever it might be, you can still be carrying some of that emotional baggage with you. And you don't know necessarily that you have that baggage. You might think that you've dealt with it, and yet it can still be affecting you. In fact, can I share a really short story about this?
Sure.
There's a story that comes to mind. Many years ago, there was a patient who came in to see me, and she thought she was having a heart attack. And she had crushing chest pain, difficulty breathing. The left side of her face was totally numb. Her left arm was totally numb. And I told my staff we might need an ambulance because this looks like a heart attack, but I wanted to do some checking on her, and I did. And what I found using the emotion code was that she had a trapped emotion of grief. And I was able to figure out that had occurred 3 years earlier. And when I found that out, and this literally just took, moments, when I found that out, she broke down crying and she said, I can't believe that that's affecting me. I thought I dealt with all that. And I said, well, what happened to you? She said that 3 years before, she found out that her husband was having an affair. So she confronted him about it. And the whole marriage blew up. And she was deeply in love with this guy who betrayed her. And so she cried buckets of tears and spent time in therapy dealing with it mentally, and had even recently gotten remarried. So as far as she was concerned, that ex-husband was just history. But as far as her body was concerned, she was holding still this emotion of grief, and it was so powerful. It was manifesting. For all practical purposes, it looked like a heart attack to me. When I released that emotion, which just took a few seconds, the feeling came back into her arm and into her face within about 3 seconds. Whoosh, and the crushing chest pain, the difficulty breathing was gone immediately. And she left the office about 10 minutes later feeling totally fine. And I remember after she left, I sat down in my office and my mind was just kind of spinning. I was thinking, how in the world did that happen? What did I just see? But you see, what happens is we all have emotional baggage. You think back to the times when you were a kid, when you cried yourself to sleep at night, or when you were bullied, or your parents were arguing, or the breakups you went through in high school that were so traumatic. We've all been through difficult things, and some of us more than others. And what we're now learning is that energy, the emotional baggage that we have, that we often talk about, is a real thing. And what's driving the global phenomenon, really, of the emotion code is that people are finding that there's a very simple, easy method that they can use to find and eliminate their own emotional baggage. And when they do, physical things improve, pain goes away, depression goes away, all the things that I mentioned improve. And it also changes how they feel about life and what kinds of things manifest for them in their lives. So the cat is really out of the bag now, is how we look at it.
So well, first of all, actually, I want to say thank you because a number of years ago, I'd been writing about infertility struggles on our site, fitbottomedmamas.com. And someone you had trained in the emotion code had just happened to read it and reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm kind of trying to build my practice here and get some, help, be of service and kind of get my feet wet in this. And I would love to help you. And we did a number of different sessions over the phone using your work. And yeah, I have a 3-year-old now, so super cool. Thank you. And it really was I feel like it was very instrumental into some of my healing. And it was, at first it was very kind of like, what is happening? Like, what is this? And where are these questions? But it really did work for me. So thank you. It's awesome to be able to talk to you. I would love to know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for people who are like, okay, so what the hell is the emotion code? Can you talk a little bit about what that process is, and if they need to work with, a practitioner, or if they can just read your book or that?
Well, one of the beautiful things about the emotion code is that it's really designed for anyone to use, and it's so simple that kids can actually use it. In fact, I have to share a story with you. This woman told me that she got the emotion code. By the way, your listeners can go to, for a limited time, they can go to emotioncodegift.com and they can download the PDF of the book and also the book on audio for free. That's at emotioncodegift.com. But anyway, that's what this woman did. And she started reading the book and listening to it. And her son started reading it and listening to it. And he started practicing with his friends. And a couple weeks go by and the phone rings. And she picks up the phone, and there's a woman on the other end of the line who identifies herself as the mother of one of this woman's son's friends. And she says, listen, your son's been doing this emotion thing, and I don't know what he's been doing. But she said, I have to tell you, my son has a severe phobia of water. He's had it all of his life. We've tried everything to fix him, taken him to all kinds of people. Nothing has ever touched it. It's been very disruptive to his life and our life as a family, but, we've just lived with it. She said, right now I'm at the community pool. She said, my son is out playing in the water for the first time in his life. She said, your son did this to him. She said, I can't wrap my mind around how this is even possible. What in the world is he doing? How can this even be? And those two boys are only 11 years old. That's how easy it is, and yet how really life-changingly powerful it can be. So to understand how it works, you have to understand that, first of all, a little bit about the conscious versus the subconscious mind. We have a conscious mind, and that's, of course, where we spend all of our waking hours. And it's where we take our tests and we go to school and we watch TV and we have our relationships. It's all in our conscious mind. But our conscious mind is a very, very tiny piece of our total intelligence. The vast bulk of our intelligence is actually subconscious. That's the part of us that is so intelligent that it can take a ham sandwich that you had for lunch and it can convert that into new cardiac muscle tissue or new nerve cells, whatever you need. It's an order of intelligence that's so far beyond our ability to comprehend that we really haven't even looked at it in those terms yet, but it's incredibly powerful. So what we have learned is that there's a very simple way to tap into the subconscious mind. And we use various different methods of muscle testing. What we have found is that when you're asking a question, okay, or you're making some kind of a statement, for example, if you were to ask, do I have a trapped emotion? The body the subconscious mind instantly responds to that question or that statement. And the response is the physical body is either slightly stronger or slightly weaker. And so what we do is we use various different methods of muscle testing to tap in to this subtle change that's taking place in the body when you are asking a question and the answer is either yes or no, or making some kind of a statement and the answer is either yes or no, true or false. Now, something I can share with your listeners is one of the first easiest methods that we teach people is something called the sway test. And your listeners can actually do this right along with us, and I'll explain how this works. If you think about a plant, okay, if you put a plant in a pot and put it near a window, if you don't rotate it periodically, after a while, you're going to notice that it's permanently bent towards the window, right? Because that's where the light is coming in. Now, they've done studies with plants, and they found that if you put a plant in a pot in the middle of a room, and that room has uniform lighting all around, the plant will grow straight up unless you put a speaker in the room that is playing soothing classical music, lullabies, things like that. In a room with uniform lighting all around, a plant will grow towards a speaker that's playing music like that. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Yeah, but the same token, if they take out that plant, put in another plant, and change the music so that it's screamo music or really harsh, grating, annoying sounds, eventually that plant will grow away from the sound coming out of that speaker, and even the roots will bend away from the sound coming out of that speaker. It's really interesting, right? Well, the human body has this same ability to respond to positive or negative input. And so if you're standing, in fact, you can do this along with me if you'd like to. If it works for you, you can stand up, drop your hands down to your sides, and totally relax. And as you're standing there totally relaxed, the first thing that you'll notice is there's a little bit of movement going on, a little bit of oscillation going on. It's really impossible to stand perfectly still, and that's okay. That's just your postural muscles working to keep you standing upright. But let's think about something negative. Let's think, for example, about the word war. If you think about that word war, that's a word we've heard all of our lives. But what I'd like you to do for a moment is think about what really goes on a human level in war. What are people doing to other people in war? What are families doing? What's happening to families? What's happening to husbands and wives and children? What's happening to villages that are being bombed? And what's really going on a human level? Think of all the tears that have been shed from all the wars that have been fought since day one on this planet. Imagine how many tears that really would be. And as you think about what really goes on in war, the moment your subconscious mind connects with that meaning of what war really means, at that same moment, your subconscious mind, if you're very relaxed, standing there very still, your body will start to sway backwards. And that's your subconscious mind moving you away from the sheer negativity of that thought of war, right? Once again, as you're standing there totally relaxed, with your hands down by your sides, eyes closed, think about the word love. And think about something or someone that you really, truly love. Maybe it's someone who is related to you. Maybe it's a husband or wife. Maybe it's a child. Maybe it is a parent. Maybe it's someone who's done something really nice for you. And if you can't think of a person, maybe it's just something that you really gravitate to. Maybe it's the great outdoors or whatever it might be. I'd like you to think about that person or that thing for a moment. And imagine that you're standing in front of that person or that you're experiencing that thing, whatever it might be. And think about how much you love that person or that thing, and allow that heart of yours to fill with love. Imagine that you're about to tell this person or this scene how much love you have in your heart and how grateful you are. And as you're thinking about that and allowing your heart to fill with that love and that gratitude for whatever it is, as you're feeling those high vibrations of love and gratitude, your body is going to inevitably start swaying forward, because that's your subconscious mind trying to move you towards those very, very high vibrations. And so we call this the sway test. Now, I don't know if either one of you were able to do this in the studio or wherever you are.
I did it. It worked.
Could you feel that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. So what you can do is you can use this simple method to actually ask questions and get answers from the subconscious mind. I am absolutely convinced that the future of all healing ultimately is going to be accessing the subconscious mind itself, because it has all the answers. You see, if you have emotional baggage, your subconscious mind knows. It knows all about it. It knows where that baggage is in your body. It knows what it's doing to you. It knows about each emotion, when they occurred, who was involved, everything about it. If you're diagnosed with some kind of a disease process, your subconscious mind knows exactly why your body is really manifesting those symptoms. And I've built my career for the last 30 years on doing just that, on accessing the subconscious, asking questions and getting answers. And it really does work. And it really, truly is the future. So you can ask, if you're standing there very relaxed, arms down by your sides, you can ask yourself, do I have a trapped emotion? And as you're holding that thought, your subconscious mind will probably sway forward, because just about everybody has trapped emotions that we know of. And so it's a fascinating thing that emotions are actually real, and that they affect us in these physical ways. Let me give you an example that'll help to illustrate this. There was a man who came in to see me many years ago who was really in pain on a 0 to 10 scale of pain. He was a 9. He said 10 is the most severe you can imagine. He was about a 9, he said, and it was his low back, been going on for a while. And I tested him using the emotion code and found he had a trapped emotion of anger. And again, using we use different methods of muscle testing that we teach people. And I was able to do some testing on him and found that this emotion of anger had actually gotten stuck in his body 20 years before. And he remembered what had happened. He'd been through something difficult and kind of traumatic, and it was very upsetting. And so I released that emotion of anger, and the pain went from a 9 to a 0 in less than the time that it's taken me to tell you the story so far, just almost instantly.
Wow.
And it was like a miracle to him. He couldn't quite believe it, and I was grateful that it worked so well. And the interesting thing, though, was that a couple days later he came back in to see me. He said, Dr. Nelson, my back pain is gone still. He said, I still can't quite believe it. Now, I want to explain why that happens. You see, when you develop a trapped emotion, it literally is a little ball of emotional energy from about the size of a baseball to about the size of maybe a softball or a little bigger. And what it will do, what that energy will do, is it will distort the normal energy field of your body. Now, because your body is really nothing more than an energy field itself, when you distort that energy field of the body in a continual way, it eventually manifests as oftentimes some kind of a physical issue. Now, his physical issue was pain. He had physical pain. It was severe. But when he came back into me, he said, you know, my pain is still gone. But he said, when I came in here, I had another problem I didn't tell you about. He said, for as long as I can remember, I've basically been what you would call a rageaholic. He said, I'm always yelling at my wife and my kids. He said, I've got to watch the road rage. He said, I've been to anger management several times. It hasn't really helped me. But he said, since you released that trapped emotion of anger for me, he said, I feel very different. He said, I just feel kind of relaxed. I don't feel on edge anymore. He said, I feel like a different person. He said, how did that work? How does that work? I don't understand it. And at the time, I didn't either. And I said, well, I really don't know. I'll try to get back to you on it. But what we believe now, if you can imagine, wrap your mind around this, if you can, that imagine this guy had literally a ball of anger, a ball of invisible energy vibrating at this particular frequency that we recognize as anger, because every emotion has a different frequency. This was stuck in his low back from 20 years before, causing his physical pain. But think about this. When a situation would arise in his life where he might tend to feel anger, he would slide right into that resonance, right into that emotional vibration, much more easily, much more readily than he otherwise would have. Why? Because literally part of his body was feeling that emotional vibration, feeling that emotion of anger 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 20 years. And so sure, he was a more angry person. He was a rageaholic, and suddenly that changed. Now, if you can imagine all the emotions that you've experienced in your life, and if you can imagine that some of those are still with you, what are they doing to you? How are they diminishing your life in the here and now? And the beautiful thing about the emotion code is that yes, we have practitioners all over the world. We've got over 4,000 practitioners in 73 countries. So if you are looking for a practitioner, you can find one. And that's great. And one of the beautiful things about it is it's energy work, and energy work does not know barriers of distance. So you can work with somebody, and you might find a fantastic practitioner, and they might be in Croatia, or they might be in Singapore. They're all over the world. You can go to healerslibrary.com, and you can see a map of all of a lot of our practitioners around the world. They're not all on there, but a lot of them are. But anyway, so when you start to wrap your mind around this idea that you have emotional baggage, and that you actually have the power now and the ability to learn a simple process that 11-year-old boy learned and was able to heal his friend from this lifelong phobia of water. It was probably just one trapped emotion, maybe two, that he released on him. Probably didn't take him more than 5 minutes. So anyway, the cat's out of the bag, like I said before.
Crazy.
That really is. So can you talk a little bit about what are some common illnesses that can be associated with trapped emotions, so our audience can kind of like check those boxes for themselves?
Yes, absolutely. The things that I mentioned, especially those mental emotional issues, like depression, they're always trapped emotions that are the underlying causes of depression. And I personally have seen people suicidally depressed get well literally in a matter of days sometimes. People who were so depressed that they literally had to decide every day if they were going to live that day or end their life that day. I've seen them get well in days. So depression, anxiety caused by emotional baggage, phobias like the boy with the water phobia, trapped emotions are the underlying cause of those, panic attacks, PTSD, eating disorders, self-sabotage, physical pain. What we find, and this, to a lot of people, this will probably sound just crazy, but what we have been finding now for the last 30 years is that somewhere around 90% of the physical pain that people have is actually due to their emotional baggage. Because when you identify the emotional baggage that's underlying that physical pain, things change. I mean, there are people listening right now who are dealing with migraines or who have neck pain or knee pain or some kind of pain somewhere in the body. And I'm telling you, you have got to look at this because it's amazing how powerful it can be. And pain is just the body's primary way of telling us that something is wrong. And the most common underlying reason, the most common imbalance that we suffer from is literally our emotional baggage. And it's the elephant in the living room in Western medicine. It truly is. So if you have symptoms of any kind, you have to look for the emotional component of those symptoms. Now, what we have found, I spent the last 10 years of my practice working primarily with people who had been told there was no cure for them whatsoever in Western medicine, people that were considered incurable. And these are people with things like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome and lupus and cancer and so on. And so those were the kind of people that I was working with. And what I found was that they all had this in common. They all had emotional baggage. In fact, I'll tell you something, and this might sound amazing, but every single disease process that we have seen in the last 30 years has had trapped emotions as an underlying component. Sometimes it's the biggest factor, and sometimes it's the only factor. Sometimes trapped emotions, emotional baggage, sometimes is the only reason for a diagnosis. Imagine. And then what does that person do? Well, they get diagnosed with whatever it might be, and then they take some kind of medication that's happily offered by the pharmaceutical companies to suppress those symptoms. But they got to make sure they keep taking it, because if they stop taking it, the body is still trying to give you the message that there's something wrong. And that's what your symptoms really are. Your symptoms are nothing more and nothing less than your body, your internal computer system trying to tell you, hey, you need some attention here. There's something wrong. And so trapped emotions they're the elephant in the living room, like I said. And the beauty of the emotion code is that there's never been anything like this in the world. There's never been a method so simple, so powerful, so fast, and so effective and so easy to find and get rid of that baggage. So I really urge your listeners to go to emotioncodegift.com, download the book on audio. It's totally free. By the way, we have an app that's available for a limited time. It's also totally free. So if you've got a smartphone, you can go to the App Store or Google Play and just look for the Emotion Code, and you can download the book immediately. It has the book, the entire book in there in printed form, so you can read it. But you can also press the play button, and it will play it for you, and it's free. So it used to be $1.99, but now it's free. So
Cool.
That's awesome. There's no barrier to entry here.
That's awesome.
exactly.
Yeah. Really quick, and then I think we'll wrap it up because we want to be cognizant of your time for sure. But I would love to know, I know you kind of touched on it a little bit. You mentioned eating disorders and self-sabotage. But since we do have so many listeners that are into, working out and possibly losing weight, but just kind of, having energy, can you just speak a minute or two on the relation to, workouts, how this could affect workouts or performance or weight loss?
Well, absolutely. I've worked with a lot of professional athletes in my career, and what I have found is that emotional baggage is affecting them in two ways. And you don't have to be a professional athlete, but it affects all of us in these two ways. It affects our ability to really manifest what we're capable of, because when we try to do something to stretch ourselves, etc., our emotional baggage is often what's in the way of actually doing that and achieving those goals and so on. The other thing that our trapped emotions do is they affect us physically, so that it takes longer to recover from our injuries. And as far as eating disorders, it changes our relationship with food. Our emotional baggage does. In fact, I'll tell you a story. There was a man who came to one of our events a year or so ago, and he got up in front of this room of about 600 people, and he told his story. He looked great, but he said that a year before, he weighed 365 pounds. And during that year, he had lost enough weight to get down to where I think he said he was 185 pounds now, which is normal for his height and so on. And here's how he did it. He said he had tried all kinds of different things to lose the weight. When he learned about the Emotion Code, he used it. And here's what he would do. He said that when he would have an urge to eat that pan of brownies or that whole pizza or whatever it was, when he would have this emotional eating feeling, he would stop and test himself and check his own subconscious mind to see what emotional baggage he had that was driving that behavior in that moment. And he would release that emotion, and the feeling would pass. And then the next time he had an emotional eating urge, he would check it again and release some other emotion. He was able to release all the emotional baggage that he had around eating, and he went from 365 pounds to 185 pounds in 1 year. That's all that he did. He didn't change anything else. And so hopefully that'll give you a little glimpse into what people can do on their own. And again, you can find someone to work with you if you want at healerslibrary.com. But the beauty of this is that you can learn to do it yourself, and you can take back the healing power that you have that is just lying there, for most people, just latent within them. You can take back that healing power, because I believe that every man and woman and child on this planet has the ability to heal. And the Emotion Code is such a beautiful thing, because it's giving that healing power and that healing ability back to everybody around the world of all ages. So that's the wonderful thing about it, is you can learn how to do this. You can heal yourself. You can heal your husband, your kids, your parents. There's so much that you can do. It's amazing. And if you like doing it, you can actually become one of our certified practitioners and join us. We are gradually changing the world one person at a time.
So can you please tell everybody in the audience where they can find you, your social media channels, everything, all that stuff?
Yeah, we have on Facebook, we are at Dr. Bradley Nelson. On Facebook, we're also at The Emotion Code Heals the World, that site. And on the web, you can reach us at, we've got, a couple sites. Again, I mentioned emotioncodegift.com, where you can download the book for free. Our main site right now is healerslibrary.com. So that's HEAL, Healers Library. And then also drbradleynelson.com. That's just DRBRADLEYNELSON.com.
Okay, and then we have one more question for you if you're ready.
Sure.
Okay. So, Dr. Nelson, what was the last song you listened to before you did this podcast interview?
The last song that I listened to?
Yeah, we asked this of everybody.
Oh, gosh. Let's see. That's a good question.
It's always a fun one.
Let me take a look here and see. I was listening to something on Deep Focus by Spotify, so it was probably Paper by Poppy Ackroyd.
Oh, okay.
That's a good playlist. I've listened to that on Spotify. It's good.
We're on
Awesome.
Spotify.
We are on Spotify. Our podcast is on Spotify.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that Spotify even had podcasts.
Yeah, it's kind of a new thing.
I need to get on there.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for being on the show today. You're an excellent guest.
Well, thank you both, Jennifer and Margot. I appreciate it. And, if you ever want to do another one, there's more we can talk about. We can talk about inherited trapped emotions, which is really so interesting, how we inherit stuff from generations back. We can talk about animals. We can do a show on animals. We can do another show about the heart wall. Oh, yeah. And that's really the one that your listeners need to hear about.
Excellent.
Cool.
It's
yeah, because I had all of that when I was working with my practitioner. Yeah, we got into the heart wall stuff was cool. The inherited stuff, the dark trapped emotion, all of that was like so. I was like, wait, what? Now what? Now what are we doing? It was really cool.
So we'll definitely have you back on the show again.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both.
Love this show? Tell us why in a 5-star review on iTunes, and we'll read it on the air. Also, make sure you are a subscriber. If you want to reach out to say hi or have a question about a recent episode, yay, well, feel free to email us at podcast@fitbottomgirls.com. And if this podcast jives perfectly with your brand, consider sponsoring the show. Get more info by emailing advertising@fitbottomgirls.com. Find all kinds of Fit Bottom goodness online and on social media at Fit Bottom Girls, Fit Bottom Mamas, Fit Bottom Eats, and Fit Bottom Zen. And if books and movies are your thing, check out the other podcast I co-host called Book versus Movie, which you can find anywhere where you search for podcasts. Thanks for listening.